Hello, and welcome to the Bitcoin.review podcast, where we explore developments and projects with the people who actually make them happen. The show is supported by Pod 2.0, Sat Streaming, and Coinkite. If you're a new listener, I'm NVK. I run Coinkite, where we've been helping people secure their Bitcoins for over a decade. We make the cold card and fun products like the block clock. You can find more information about it on coinkite.com. Hello, and welcome back to the Bitcoin.review podcast. Today we have a fun little group here. Mr. Ben the Carman.
Yo, good to be back.
We have Mr. Paul, future Paul, not past Paul.
Hello.
And we have Rob Hamilton.
Hello.
And a new appearance here. We have Mr. Jameson Lopp. Hello, sir. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
All right, quick housekeeping here. Coinkite is looking for a production manager. Just email jobs@coinkite.com. We're looking for, this is hardware production manager, none of that other stuff. Like, you know your shit, you know what a bomb is, you know how to handle a Asian supplier. Ideally you can speak, Mandarin or something. And, you're used to procuring parts. We can say, hey, here is a capacitor of this spec, and you find some cool stuff. Anyways, if you're a hardware production manager, you know. What else? The other thing is BBQr reminder. It's gaining a little bit of traction, and the people who know that too. I mean, it's better. It's 30% better, or maybe 50%, depending what you're comparing to. And what's the name of that guy? He used to, I think, work for you guys, James. Rearhead.
Are we talking about Reardon Code?
Reardon Code, yes.
Brandon Black.
Weird. He was bitching about QRs the other day, and I'm like, barbecue QR. He's like, yep, it's better.
It's it's better, but how much better can you really get, right? Like
50% better.
But what's the maximum throughput? Isn't it still like 1 kilobyte per second or something?
No, there's no time. If ignore time is kind of irrelevant for this. It's more like screen size is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're trying to display a QR on a hardware wallet, to scan it with a potato computer, like a potato screen computer, which like half the laptops are potato cameras, having that QR being of a better compression matters, and especially because you avoid animation if it's better compressed. And barbecue QR does that in spades.
I saw it's now in Rust as well. I think is my mic good? Yeah, it's the Bull Bitcoin team put that together, right?
Yes, and there is also so there's Rust and there's Dart bindings, and there's a JavaScript one, and there's going to be more. There's more coming.
That's because it's public domain.
Yes.
I spent way too much time recently playing around with QR code stuff during my multi-sig performance testing. And I don't know, maybe part of it is potential improvement on Sparrow's side, which I was using for testing, because they only offer 2 different density options. I don't know if maybe we should offer even higher density options, but then it gets tough, I guess, because it just requires so much testing to figure out what each device's camera is capable of really processing, and the frame rate and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So, it's very early on this technology for Bitcoin too, right? And there was no like large install base for that. So now that there is a bit more like bigger install base happening, I think we're going to find a lot of shortcomings. For the barbecue QR, at least there is the Sparrow, Nunchuk, BTCPay Server, Crooks. The Bull Bitcoin thing is coming online. And people need to play. The Spiral displaying 4 cold card to read is pretty fast. The Sparrow is using the computer camera, and it's a computer camera kind of limitation, right? But we have something new to resolve some of that coming in a few updates of this list today. There is a new spec, NFC tap to push. We'll talk about it. All right, guys, let's get into the vulnerability disclosures. Flaw in Password Manager, RoboForm helps researchers recover 20-character passphrase Unlocking access to Bitcoin wallet containing 43.6 Bitcoin. Encryption is fun when you have the key and not fun when you don't have the key. So this one was it's like great and horrible. So if you're using RoboForm to encrypt things, don't, because they have a flaw in their encryption implementation that makes it so that you can break it. I didn't read the specs of it, but it just looks like they just didn't do either the stretching right or the random number is bad.
The thing says they're using like the computer's time to incorporate it, so you scan through all the number the last 5 years and you're good.
There you go. Brutal. Actually, no, there is a birthday date, right? Like there's a birthday date and there is a die date too for that bug. So like you can just use the time for that very specific period and you have the keys. Wow. So yes, don't use computers to generate keys.
Nothing says random like the passage of time and just being able to guess all the timestamps.
The beautiful thing about this is it looks like it just was found by somebody trying to get his own Bitcoin, like basically hacking a wallet where he lost money.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin, is it incentivizes finding weaknesses in all kinds of systems that you might not have presumed would be, Bitcoin related. It's, this is not the first time that this type of thing has happened. And of course, mostly it's because people are using systems that weren't designed for Bitcoin stuff. And so they're creating these weird incentives to break them.
Yeah.
But yeah, the moral takeaway for me here is choose an insecure way of storing so that when I lose my key, I can hack it later to get my money back.
Yeah, sounds like a great idea. Go to Raspberry Pi and use UDEV. The funny one, I do have a bunch of Electrum wallets from the past that, had change in them, like nothing that I know of that would be anything that interesting. But I lost the password for probably I have like a folder of Electrum wallets that I lost the password for. I'm sure there will be some sets in them. And I know those passwords are strong. So it's going to take a couple decades to be able to break those. Unless somebody finds a flaw in Electrum, on Electrum's either CGen or on their encryption. I don't think the CGen would have been compromised. It would be just the encryption of the wallet. How are you guys doing the entropy for your PWAs?
The browser has like a secure random thing, so we just call that. I know you have to trust your browser, but I mean that's kind of the nature of the entire wallet. So
trust the browser.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to trust those things like, move your mouse around or whatever, because then you're trusting that it's taking those inputs. You can't prove it.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
All right. Japanese exchange DMM hacked for 4,500 Bitcoin. While nothing has been confirmed yet, on-chain analysis, Mononautical has suggested a possibility of address poisoning attack. Ooh.
Yeah, the cool weird thing about that is like if it's the address poisoning thing, that means it was like an inside job or like one of like the three signers like tricked one of the other ones, which is kind of, and then you know who it is probably. So that's a little sus, but yeah.
I don't know. It kind of makes you want to go and dust a bunch of really high balance addresses, and then have another output with a vanity generated similar address just to see what could happen. It'd be interesting to see what the ROI on that is.
I mean, it's pretty beautiful, right? I think it was like they had was the first 4 in the last 4, the first 6 in the last 6.
I think it was only the last 2.
That's it?
It gets exponentially more difficult to match on both ends.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like that would have been a lot for you to get 4 and 4.
I mean, for like $450 million, I'll wait a week to generate an address. Or four, yeah, however much that was.
No, 4 and no, there you go. It's 4 and 2, because the first one you get for free, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really, the first 2 you get for free. Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, who checks more than the last 2? Like visually speaking, right?
When I'm sending 4,000 Bitcoin, you're darn sure I'm checking the entire thing.
No, don't you just scan the screen and YOLO?
We had this as a topic at the Austin Bitcoin Design Club. The idea of like doing it segmented, kind of like how you used to like serial numbers used to show up.
Yeah.
Like in chunks instead of one long string.
Yeah, I mean the chunks of 6 are pretty common for keys this size. That would be helpful, but it's already a long enough thing, so you're gonna need more screen real estate on hardware wallets that are already like very limited.
Part of this attack too was using this poisoned address and dusting their accounts, right, to make it look like they had transaction histories with it.
Yes, we have seen a lot of dusting into some of our shopping cart wallets, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I can confirm the same thing with our BTCPay.
Yeah, it seems that, well, like they should know that those are going to be donated straight to straight to a born address or Tor donation or something.
I take those and I hand them out to our developers for testing.
I mean, they should, like, these guys are like, they should at least invest a little more, make those UTXOs a little bigger, because that would make it like me want to spend them. It's just too small. All right. Next one is GitHub warns of SAML auth bypass flaw in enterprise servers. I mean, there's a CV for it and all that stuff. Like, this is interesting to me, at least, because a lot of Bitcoin projects depend on GitHub as the source of their binaries, and they don't host their own binaries. They just trust GitHub. One time, our little bot, what's the bot name?
Binary bot.
The Binary Watch, right?
Good bot.
Yeah. Binary Watch found that the distribution of join markets, I think it was the zip file, whatever, the SHA-SUM was being meddled with by how GitHub was putting it there for download. I mean, that's the explanation that we found and have. Not the fact that maybe the spooks were doing something. So it is kind of sketchy.
I'm thinking through the attack model, though, because a lot of projects, they'll sign their commits, right? So you're not going to be able to man in the middle.
Yes, you can.
Oh, can you?
I don't know if you've noticed this, that if you commit from the GitHub UI, you can GitHub sign that commit. It shows the same thing on the UI.
This was an exploit when I was on maybe like a month ago, 2 months ago, where people were finding ways to break enterprise repos by uploading files, and then it looks like a GitHub URL.
Yeah.
And they were just kind of like sliding stuff in there. Yeah, it's a good point.
And remember, right, like most of the package managers just push shit off GitHub too. So like GitHub is the centralized like risk place, right? Like it's a critical problem there. Anyways, I don't have a good answer. I mean, we essentially host code card binaries ourselves, and we have a copy on GitHub as a second source of truth.
And the cold card itself checks the signing of the binary, right?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, all hardware wallets should check the firmware before they let you have it. You need multiple sources, right? Because if you only have one source of truth or attestation, then you have bad incentives for people to just go and break that single one.
Right. This also, deterministic builds are just important too. So you can just pull it yourself and byte by byte check it all.
That's right. Except for the bytes of the signature that we had to explain to people why it wasn't.
Just give me a private key. You have nothing to hide. Just give me the private key.
It was actually pretty brutal. When the deterministic builds started to become a little bit more popular, like there were a lot of those, those like crazy accounts on Twitter that like claimed that oh, you have something to hide or whatever. You had to explain that. I think even wallet scrutiny was also the same problem. Like people couldn't understand that you can't reproduce the signature bytes, and I'm like, yes, because you don't have the keys. Anyways, that's a problem there for GitHub and for people depending too much on GitHub. Do we have anything interesting sort of for binary distribution, like coming around that's a little bit more decentralized?
There's a zap.store. They're trying to like do it on Nostr, but like you're not hosting the actual binaries on Nostr. It's more the attestations.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, decentralized file hosting, and you could like torrent them, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, torrent is surprisingly good at that because you can check signatures, right? Like right on the magnets, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Lopp, how do you guys handle some of this stuff?
Well, we're not trying to be publicly verifiable, but within our own internal build systems, we require, of course, full signatures on all of our code commits, and the actual build system itself, as far as I know, we haven't gotten to like full determinism, but we also, we're not like a public project where multiple people are trying to prove what we're doing.
Right. Well, you can't do deterministic builds on iOS store, right? Because the binary is...
It's a crazy rabbit hole where I've had these arguments before where people say, oh, if you jump through like 10 various hoops, you can do deterministic builds, but it's never been presented to us in a way that we felt like anybody outside of the company would even try to do it.
Well, also, like, how are you going to prove to the user, right? I mean, like, it's not like you can SHA some on your iPhone. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like these will become bigger problems as the honeypot grows, right? I mean, Apple could just take care of the impersonations. That'll be already a huge one. All right, WhatsApp vulnerable to traffic analysis was reported by The Intercept. Yeah, I mean, just assume that they were.
What isn't? In order to not be vulnerable to traffic analysis, don't you have to be kind of passively creating traffic in the background as a kind of noise?
Well, you can do traffic shaping, right? So you can try to sort of like make it look like it's something else. That's some of the stuff that they want to do with the new Bitcoin P2P capabilities. But like, I think if you have like a state actor that has infinite budgets to inspect your traffic, like, it's pretty hopeless. All right. Surveilling the masses with Wi-Fi based positioning system. A new attack shows how Apple's Wi-Fi based positioning system can be abused, allowing unprivileged attackers to look at it. Wow. Yeah, I mean, also assumed this was already happening. Your device has like 50 radios and they're all broadcasting. They're all saying, hello, I'm here. Say hi to me. Hello, I'm here. Say hi to me. So it's pretty, you have to turn off everything, but you really can't. So you have to put it in a Faraday bag and carry it around that if you want to not show it. That's another reason for, like radios and hardware wallets and the trade-offs that come with that, I guess. All right. Lopp's list of known physical Bitcoin attacks. I don't think I brought this list before on the show as a light item. And it's a good list. It's a fun list to remind everybody that, you should take your security seriously. Came to my attention because you had an addition recently, right?
Fun is an interesting word for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is there are always additions happening. I would say we're probably averaging around one a month right now, but it's also because we're not in a peak bull market FOMO. There is a very strong correlation between the sort of retail FOMO realization of crypto market hype cycles and actual physical attacks, because this makes sense. It's because the criminals who have never really thought about trying to do wrench attacks for crypto, they start doing the mental math and they're like, hey, why should I take a big risk of trying to actually rob a bank or some other high value physical brick and mortar location when I can probably, with a little bit of Googling, find some high net worth Bitcoiners who I can also find their residence, because almost nobody has decent operational security, especially, well, really in most countries, you own any sort of property and it's easy to find your address.
You can't.
Yeah.
Many countries, you can't even put a layer, right? Like a firewall on it. Well, but like most common law countries, you can set up a trust to buy a house, but like it's too easy to get it doxxed after the fact too, right? I mean, like you have an Amazon account that ships there, boom, it doesn't matter that it has.
Oh yeah, you have to firewall everything.
Everything.
You can't have anything shipped to your address or have any really of your accounts anywhere tied to you. And this is all part of some of the privacy stuff that I've been talking about for years, where the short version is I just lie to a lot of people and organizations. They ask for my home address and I give them an address that looks like a home address, but is either completely made up or it's an actual like private mailbox. But these attacks, I keep track of it because I think we just want to see what the trajectory is, and we want to understand we as a trigger warning community doing a halfway decent job of protecting ourselves from wrench attacks. Because if 95 or 98% of Bitcoiners have terrible operational security and physical security, then the criminals are just going to do the math and realize what an easy payday it is to get life-changing money with one simple threat against the right person.
I mean, you could think about it differently too, right? Like the more Bitcoiners out there that have poor security, the better it is for us who have slightly better security, right?
Yeah.
all you have to do is you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the other guy, right? And there is a lot of people that want to be perceived as rich and be famous, right? So there is always somebody else out there that want to look like a target, fortunately. But it's pretty brutal, like people, the kind of stuff that people share publicly, especially when it comes to like, the size of piles or things like that is really bad.
People don't understand how easy it is to dox yourself, even with just something like a photo. There are autists out there who can find you anywhere in the world from like one photo.
Yes.
But the main thing that I would say is, we have, I think, over 150 physical attacks that are currently cataloged on here. And the main point I would get across is this is way undercounting it. It is way underreported.
Most people don't.
Yes.
Most people would not like go to, because there's nothing to do really. It's like they probably wouldn't go out police station and say, "Hey, I got robbed."
Yeah, but also I can tell you from my own experience of like working with people who have come to me because they've been attacked, privately, seeking advice, is that they don't want, in many cases, to even go to law enforcement because that can create a public record trail that could get picked up, and end up in the news. As that's how I find out about most of the things on this list is, reporters either find it in police logs or in court cases or whatever. And so they're basically afraid that being public about it happening will make you more of a target. And this actually directly relates to my own personal experience getting swatted in 2017. I had to do the calculus myself. And so I got swatted in 2017. I was public about it happening at the time, but I didn't go into many details about what happened because I immediately started looking at, okay, how do I actually improve my privacy and security? And it wasn't until over a year later when I had burned down my entire life and started it over again in a more hardened posture that I started releasing all the details of what happened and started going after the person who attacked me.
So my wife is a litigator for estate law, right? And so like they often have to find people, right? Because people die, you have to do estate stuff, and it really takes about 2 minutes for a PI to find anyone. It doesn't matter how good their OPSEC is. Like it is fascinating how fast they find people. They just know how to find them.
I would love for this to become more of a part of the, obviously people who know about privacy know that this is a big reason why you want privacy, but especially as we're like, interacting with governments who don't want us to have financial privacy, recognizing that like governments, by requiring like financial institutions to collect a ton of information about people and link that with financial information, is creating these honeypots that can potentially lead to these really, dire physical consequences.
I mean, look at exchanges, right? I mean, like, they have a number of your balance, right? Or your past balance, and your like pictures of your ID or your address and all this stuff. And, it's not a if, it's a when they're going to get hacked, right? So what I started like requiring in order to have business relationships with exchanges or whatever, any financial institution that's like related to this industry is, I want to do KYC in paper. I know they have to do the KYC, right? But like I require that they do in paper or we don't do business with them. Because at least on paper, you go to their office, they take a photocopy of everything and, like they keep it in their safe. And worst case that happens is, place burns, they need to do it again or they lose it, inside the office and they have to do it again. But, the chances of a remote attack or a data dump leaking my personal information are much lower.
It's like a cold offline KYC.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there is any other way, like until, we manage to end KYC and AML laws that, only affect us.
Yeah. I mean, the one trend that I will note that seems to be just beginning is that it looks like there are some savvy groups of criminal actors that are basically starting to specialize in this.
Yes.
And it's, at least in South America, it's kind of a variation on a scam that criminal groups have been running against like tourists and expats for a while, where they basically get you on the dating apps and then they have a girl take you home and drug you and unlock your phone and wipe everything out. And so now they've just sort of added wiping out your exchange balances and your hot wallet balances as a part of that. But we're also starting to see people get extortion and physical threats where they basically get doxxed and they start having weird things happen to them in their real life. They're not having like someone point a gun in their face, but they're getting communications that are very threatening, and somehow these groups are getting boots on the ground of people to start doing physical things like in their proximity, starting to like physically test their security.
And it's all remote too, right? Like the master bad guys are not even in their countries or whatever, right? Like it would be, I don't know, they're like in Afghanistan or like Nigeria or, Russia or whatever. And then they hire people locally. They hire bad guys locally to go do their bidding.
Exactly.
And the bad guys locally don't even know the extent of what they're doing. They're just hired to like, go drop this letter in front of their house, right? Like it's like remote hands. Which makes it like, extremely, essentially impossible for law enforcement to even deal with it. That really brings up like, this things that Rob is working on, you are working on, some of the stuff that we work on. I still think that, really the main reason why I went up vault and CTV so that we can have on-chain vaults to have more preemptive security, right? More reactive security.
Yep.
And de-risk ourselves personally, right? I mean, I'm not going to dox myself, but, like the way I have things set up is like, it will take me a month to reconstitute things. Like, and it requires a lot of international travel too. So like, it's like, good luck. Like
that's the only real practical way of securing yourself against wrench attacks. I wrote an essay about this several years ago where I basically said, if you think about the threat model in a wrench attack scenario is you yourself become the threat. You have to assume that you are completely compromised.
Yes.
And you are able to authenticate through all of your security system. So the only way to really secure against that is to make it such that you have to physically pass through high security barriers
multiple times, and they're timed, and like it is like literally a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Jameson, for this list, like what % of these are just like single SIGs on a phone, right? I'm assuming that's like most, if not like almost all of them.
I'm not aware of a single one that was a multi-sig setup that was compromised. It was pretty much always people who had everything on a like mobile app wallet, or they just had like a single signature hardware device at their house that was easily accessible.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I hate on SidQR so much. I love the standard, right? Minus the compressed version. but it's the incentives, right? This idea of having a hidden seed unencrypted in your house is very dangerous. Like having private key material around you invites violence, right? And if you're doing multi-sig, but all the keys are in the same location, you're in the same conundrum, right? And it is incentivized that way, right? Like people talk about this.
Yeah, it's convenient.
Exactly, right? I mean, see, like I've been trying to push this idea for people to sort of understand that, like, any savings amount that are unrequired for you to function day to day should not be accessible by you.
Yeah.
Period. Like, like it's just simply inaccessible. Like you don't need it. Like you don't need to carry around the hardware wallet, right? Like you don't need to have it around you. You don't have for your savings, right? Have a second one, right? That you use for like your, like a checking style life, right? And you're spending money, keep it in a phone wallet, right? Like try to segregate the types of spending you have, because you're putting yourselves at risk. I mean, the collaborative multi-sig stuff, like, there are trade-offs, a lot of them related to privacy, and I hope we can overcome that. I actually want to get to that since you're here, Lopp. We do need to remove, like, to fix the privacy problem with the co-signing parties, right? Like if you have an outsider party to do that, because then we can really sort of like get to a place that's better. My biggest fear of using the collaborative multi-sig setups, aside from the ones that require KYC, which you're not going to use unless it's a business, having in a way that the co-signing partner doesn't even have access to balance, right? Like they cannot see the balance.
Have you seen ArbDAO has been working on SigBash?
No.
It's something like this where you actually just buy an XPub, and then you just, whenever you want to like redeem your money, you just like dump it. Like, here's a PSBT. This is my pre-agreed upon conditions. It's no KYC. You just like pay in Bitcoin, get an XPub, and then you can, stash that in your descriptor, and you could use it. And then whenever you need them to sign, you just present the PSBT, and then it'll blind sign as long as it follows the conditions, which is like
right.
a certain amount of Bitcoin or a Bitcoin price or a date in the future. Like you can like up front, you just agree when you buy the XPub, here are the conditions which you're allowed to sign.
There were a lot of services like that way back in the day. I think there's still one that actually comes with Electrum. I think it's called TrustCoin or something like that. Not the one that got hacked, something else. And what it could do, it was similar to that. Like essentially it works as like 2-factor with some condition. Yeah, like I don't know, like maybe the solution, at least for now, that we don't have on-chain primitives that can do this. It's like, it's not an XPub that you share. You share maybe like a bunch of sub private keys, right, with them, and so that you don't de-anonymize the rest of the stuff, and you have like UTXOs that are specific to some things. I don't know, like I Flaxman had like a crazy setup where you deterministically generate other private keys, and but you don't tell the path to
the blinded XPubs.
Yes, it's too convoluted. Like James, like I'm sure you guys are studying this shit all the time because you can make this into a product. Like where are you guys at with some of this stuff in this thinking?
Well, there's always pros and cons, right? Is that if you start blindly signing stuff, then you can no longer have the security of being able to essentially authenticate with the end client. So, for our top tier clients, we're literally getting on calls with people and running through various playbooks for authenticating that they are who they say they are and that their money is going to the place that they want it to go. And it's always going to be trade-offs. This is the really tricky thing about trying to balance privacy versus having a collaboration where people are helping you, is that there's a lot of times where one of our clients might run into an issue, and in order for us to help them debug it, we need to know more information about the transactions, the UTXO, the state of their wallet. So this is, I think it's always going to be the case that if you want the ultimate level of privacy in Bitcoin, you have to be the lone mountain man who's doing everything on your own. And this is kind of what we're trying to explore at Casa is, what is a path that we can take that is kind of navigating these different trade-offs and giving people more usability, but of course, some of those trade-offs will be at the privacy and sovereignty level because we are helping them with some of the heavy lifting.
So, but like, what do you do when you fire an employee? Do you shoot them? Like the ones that have any information of a customer? Like, like I'm joking, by the way, because who knows who's going to take this clip. But, those are the concerns, right? Like, it's like, oftentimes attacks happen because somebody internally in an organization is part of the attack, right? So for example, in Brazil, what they love to do is they'll kidnap the kids of the family of the security guard that guards the front gate of a condo building, right? And then when the bad guys show up, and these are condo buildings that have all kinds of security, right? And when the guys show up, right, like they just open the door. And then they go apartment by apartment, like, getting everybody naked and locking them in the washroom while they rob everything, right? Or, like at Big Go, remember the couple, the lady who helped
Razzle Khan, prolific rapper.
There you go. Oftentimes it's internal people, right? And like, we just assume everybody that works for us, including us, are spooks, right? That's how we run our org, right? But it comes with a lot of trade-offs.
Pretty much. I mean, you have to build not only your software, but also your organizational practices so that you don't have single points of failure. So you can't really have a God admin within your organization. There have to be checks and balances all over the place. And of course, at the end of the day, you're making a certain assumption that some threshold of employees aren't going to collude together. Usually doing that by making sure that you have really, really strong audit logging so that, even if that did happen, it would be obvious who did it, and you send, law enforcement after them. And this is where it's also important to know who your employees are. I mean, there's anyone who's running a company in this space, especially on the security side, you've got North Korean people who are trying to get hired into your company. You have adversarial state-sanctioned actors that are trying to get in, and you have to KYC your employees, but that's just one of the trade-offs.
Yeah, no, it is very tricky.
To that point, we're currently looking to hire someone. So I did a post on Bitcoiner Jobs, and I think I got like 5 of those like North Korean hacker profiles, like the random GitHub account that has like no history, but a bunch of emojis, and they're experienced in 75 different languages because they're just trying to get into the system. It's pretty wild out there for sure. You have to be very diligent on who you're bringing on board.
I highly recommend not advertising jobs to Bitcoiners. I know it sounds crazy, but there is other people in the world that would love to work on this kind of software, or especially in the business side of the business.
I agree. I was just kind of, casting a wide net.
For sure.
I think Alex Leishman makes this point about how he would rather hire a good employee engineer and make them a Bitcoiner over time than trying to make sure you hire Bitcoiners out of the gate.
Yeah, it's especially now, right? Like the space is maturing. So like, we know what we need software-wise. Like, so it doesn't have to be somebody specialized from Bitcoin for that.
Oh.
Well, some of the times it does. Anyways.
Sorry, I just realized it's not on the list. Did you want to shout out Graphene just now has a duress pin now? And how did they possibly get inspired to add a duress pin to their phone?
Maybe we add to this list now. Yeah. So there was a case in Australia where the guy was forced to give the password or whatever. And I was shouting on Twitter that every important device in your life should have a duress pin, or ideally a brick me pin. I don't know for certain if Graphene had followed my shouting, but yes, like it's very important. Like, and in my opinion, it shouldn't even be a wipe; it should be a brick. Wiping on complex computers doesn't really work, depending on the sophistication of the attacker or how the wiping is done. So I think just like completely breaking the memory, breaking everything is safer. Who cares if your device is destroyed when the alternative is you're losing all your privacy or your Bitcoin. When people say, the brick me pin is going to cost me a new cold card. Well, it's better to lose the cold card than all your Bitcoin, right?
I did see a fun Reddit thread recently where people were suggesting that cold card brick me pin is just a sales tactic to sell a lot more cold cards.
Yeah, and it's like the kind of stuff you hear, man. It's always fascinating. There is this sort of like, I almost want to call it a faction of like, I call it communist Bitcoiners. It's like, like they're like anti-business. It's weird. It's like anti-profit, and just don't use the feature if you don't want the feature, right? Like we're building here for the people who are in it to win it, not for the people who are sort of like trying to LARP, right? Like, and being able to destroy a device in a situation where destroying the device may mean the big difference, it sounds great. It's similar to like people who hate that we launch new hardware because they want to buy the new one. Like, dude, like, I'm trying to improve the security. Like,
don't even get me started. There seems to be a decent contingent of people who don't understand that there are many different companies and products in this space, and they're not all targeting the exact same users, and that's okay. It's good to have a diversity of security models, privacy models, usability, and let people select what works best for them.
Yeah, I mean, and you can even like create rule of thumbs on this. Like, if you can't afford a cold card, you probably don't have enough Bitcoin that warrants needing a hardware wallet. Like, why are you even bothering with this stuff? Just like keep it on a phone with a seed, right? There's a lot of sort of like very rational rule of thumbs you can create around this stuff. And, just don't LARP like that. You're going to get like hurt, robbed. It's, you're going to screw your own self out of your BTC. It's not a good idea. Anyways, it's tricky. All right. So we're starting 45 minutes in the Bitcoin software release and project updates. Casa announces support for wallet descriptors. Go ahead, Lopp. You don't have to read exactly as is, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's long overdue, but mostly it's surprising how little adoption wallet descriptors have received thus far. And my main issue with the lack of adoption is I think that if the rest of the ecosystem keeps just treading water and ignoring this, then it's potentially going to hinder adoption of the cool stuff that people are starting to want to build, like Rob, basically taking advantage of Taproot, TapScript, more complex spending conditions, because we're no longer in the world where you may only have one single signature wallet or a standard 2 of 3 or 3 of 5, and that's the extent of your spending conditions. Because for example, I want to be playing around with many scripts and creating crazy, arbitrarily complex spending conditions, and the standard wallet software that's out there, like even the good, highly adopted multi-sig wallet software that's out there, it doesn't really give you the flexibility. We have the tooling at the protocol layer, but we don't yet have the software layer tooling to be able to easily define and create and back up and recreate these more complex wallets. So I think that we need to start with descriptor support.
It's funny. When I created the website outputdescriptors.org, I think, was when Output Descriptors got merged. And we added to Cold Card because we had a lot of users trying to use Core with Cold Card way back then, where there was no GUI for it. So these are only terminal people, right? And the only way to get in and out of Core was with Output Descriptors once they were added. And we thought it was going to just be like, boom, like everybody's going to adopt this because it makes complete sense. I mean, that's the best way to get in and out of wallets, especially for multi-sig. But what we noticed is that like a lot of client software out there, right? So the wallets that create the transactions, not the signers, they just a lot of times don't have the technical chops to do this stuff. And that's why adoption is so mediocre. One good thing though is the software and the signers out there that seem to have the most of market share do tend to be the ones that are capable.
Absolutely, yeah. I for the descriptor stuff, I think it's also just important to be fair in that, and I don't mean this like in a bad way, but like if you have a system that's working and it's securing people's money today, like if it's not broken, don't fix it. So why touch it, right? And so like it's a form of tech debt, but it definitely in the conservatism of Bitcoin, it's important to, I guess, have that context in mind that people don't want to actively start reworking things. And the output descriptors are great for mini scripts, but even if you just want to use anything in Taproot, if you want to use like any sort of more elaborate tap script like leaves, if you want to be able to do anything with Musig, there's actually a BIP that just got merged like this morning about Musig and output descriptor support. So if you want to do anything that isn't just sorted multi-sig or single sig, you're going to want the descriptor because you need to be able to reconstruct these, like the Merkle trees. Like you need to be able to for Taproot.
Even bread and butter P2SH, the output descriptor is a better way for you to have that script.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with that personally, yeah.
An example that I gave in the blog post. So I think that Casa is probably more incentivized than a lot of wallets to have interoperability. This is part of our ethos of not being a single point of failure. We don't want our app or our company to be a single point of failure. So we take great effort to make sure that we are compatible, and you can recreate your wallet in other open source software. And it is a pain for us to tell people how to do that. It's like we have these lengthy support articles that basically say, click on this, move the slider over here.
It's nearly hopeless.
Yeah. And so it should be a simple either copy paste or QR code operation. And that's the great thing. These wallet descriptors are compact enough that you can put them in a QR code, and so import export is as easy as doing anything else with QR. And I know Rodolfo loves QR, so end of story.
So it's funny. There is actually conversation with the Seed Hammer guys, right? And there was even a PR or a BIP conversation started. There is no easy way for you to transport the output descriptors right now. So they suggested to Andrew Chow to put the output descriptor as an optional field on PSBT. So the PSBT is still the transport. That was vetoed. It can still go on the vendor defined fields, which don't really be, you can do whatever you want there. But, so people listening out there, we do need a standard for output descriptors to go in and out of things, and especially as mini script complexity and these things get bigger, we do need a solution for this. There is because BBQr, the Seed Hammer guys wanted they opened the conversation there to create a seed barbecue QR for probably hard typed for output descriptors. But yeah, sure, it's great, we need it, but there's no proper spec. And I think everybody's sort of like that there is like that something commons was trying to do something like that, but people ran away from that because it's academic hell. So
I just have one related gripe related to output descriptors. The way Core handles it right now, and a couple other, is that you have an internal branch and an external branch. So you have to load two separate descriptors in to be able to get the entire wallet, which just adds extra friction. Like there's the wallet policy notation where you just declare hey, this is going to be change receive. And to me, since 99% of the text is identical, why have two separate descriptors for interfacing with Core? Other wallets have been able to get around this, but it's just something I've been interfacing with recently.
Rob, you might want to participate in the discussion on the BBQr repo, because it's possible that discussion ends up becoming the spec.
Okay.
Of how to go back and forth. So maybe go offer your 2 cents there.
Yeah, I'll go start it right now.
I think it's the next thing that we need to sort out.
I mean, look, we need to get away from the common belief that all you need is your seed phrase. I think that's one of the big issues at play here, especially as the Bitcoin protocol continues to evolve and as we have just a higher variety of script types and derivation paths and spending conditions, is that people, I think, still don't understand that the ability to spend your Bitcoin is more than just having the private keys, because that seed phrase is essentially an infinite number of private keys, which of course, if you have to search through them and search through all the possible spending combinations, It's like expecting someone to be able to mine a Bitcoin block with a little USB miner.
Yeah. The way I view this as a mental model when I explain this to people is that your private keys are the keys that unlock the treasure chest, but the output descriptor is the treasure map that gets you to the chest. Because the keys are not enough if you can't even recreate the redemption script on chain.
But part of this is like there is almost like a tragedy of the commons that happens in spaces that are not that big with the amount of devs in them. Like Bitcoin is still sort of narrow in that sense. Is that like everybody like in industry embedded with the core work tends to think that you need one standard to rule them all, and that is not true. As a industry grows and develops and it has more members, sometimes there may be 2 or 3 standards in that industry, and that's okay as long as a standard is not just a single player. It is a very viable thing, because sometimes like you have different players that they're so far apart in their requirements, right? That they you make a poor standard if they try to compromise. So, and I think that's what happened to Lightning, for example. I wish Lightning was more players that maybe don't interrupt. Instead of making so much compromise, like figure out like, okay, these are the 5-10 sort of like entities that do a lot of business together. There's a lot of interrupt between them. Maybe the standard that they use is something, it's open, other people can adopt it, other people can suggest changes and improve it, whatever, but they don't try to completely water down and destroy that standard because there's another 50 people with opinions and like no users, right? That's what I found about like that BCQR stuff. It's like it was horrible. It's a terrible standard, and there is not a lot of adoption. So, is it the first one? It has some adoption, absolutely. But, it's a terrible terrible standard with not a lot of adoption. So, therefore, time for a new standard. And it's okay. Some clients may support 2 standards. Maybe they come around to the fact there's a shitty standard, they move on to a new standard. But I think it's okay in the market to have more options. All right. BTCPay Server version 1.13.2 updated. Specter DIY 1.9.0, add Taproot miniscript support, and BIP85 app.
I think that makes the 3rd signing device that supports Taproot miniscript now.
Nice.
That would be Cold Card, Ledger, and Specter DIY.
Perfect.
When Edge firmware for the Q?
Didn't we release already?
I was given an early build to test around, like poke around with, but if I go to the Cold Card website right now,
the download page, let's see.
On the download page.
I don't even know because I don't use it much, the miniscript branch.
No, totally. I just
let's see here.
There is no Edge. It's in a different tab and it's only for the MK4.
Okay, yeah. No Edge. At least there's no there's a branch, but there is no.
It has rounded corners, so no Edge. It's very nicely rounded corners.
Yeah, so there is no. Okay, I'll get on that. We've been busy. Okay, all right. Specter, what else? Specter Desktop, macOS or MacOS, Intel architecture officially supported. Add support for more languages and things. Electrum version 4.5.5. Update support for latest version of SLIP39 mnemonic spec. That's interesting. Because I remember Electrum having some issue with SLIP. Anyways, Lightning Unified Max Fee bounds for payments. QML GUI Android update. And binaries App Armor profile for Tarball and App Image. Nunchuk Desktop version 1.9.34 and Android 1.9.46. Update network settings for easily managing Electrum servers. Ability to subscribe to securely change their email address. Update message retention logic for Byzantine Finnic groups. Has there been any work done on like creating some form of interop between collaborative multi-sig companies?
I can speak a little bit to some of the discussions that have happened. And at least most of the discussions that I'm thinking of had to do with key sharing. And I'm sure Rob has been on a number of those as well. And a lot of it, the problems come down to a few things. One of them is actually related to the sort of privacy and blinded XPub related stuff you were talking about earlier, which is that co-signers don't necessarily want to take on the risk of blindly signing without knowing exactly what they're doing. Another one is just incentivization. Like, how do you get paid for providing that service? It's a part of the market that hasn't really been specced out.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have like, well, especially if we get to the blinded stuff, that would be amazing. But, maybe you have, especially for organizations, like, it would be nice if you have like, Casa is a cosigner and Nunchuk is another cosigner. And somehow there is a protocol that, talks to whatever client you pick to use.
Yeah, I've always one of the first thoughts I had when I saw Nostr as a protocol was that that's a perfect way to start coordinating this stuff. Where
terrible for that.
You think it's terrible for coordinating?
Because there is no privacy, right? Once we have ratchet.
Got it.
Double ratchet, yes. But like, I don't want PSBT because PSBT is like, it's like zero privacy, right? Like, it's like, here's the money. So like, don't like that. But, double ratchet is coming, right? And then he can use it.
I was thinking with like private relays. It wouldn't be like on my main Nostr feed where everyone could look at it. It would be like a private server, like a private relay. Yeah.
Yeah. The Nunchuk, I think, uses a fork or a version of Matrix for their comms, because it's kind of cool. You can talk to the other signers within the app. And that's another thing like that I really wish was a standard or more adopted by more clients. A huge part of co-signing things is talking to the other party co-signing and being able to do that, like, privately within the confines of that key space would be huge.
Not only privately, but also securely to make sure that, nobody's man in the middling you.
Well, I mean, if you're using the private key of the co-signing as the key for the key that generates the key of the chat session, right? I mean, you have the assurances that, like, if the other part is not compromised, I mean, the only people that can see this is the people that can co-sign this.
I've seen as a popular approach, you basically have a difference of keys. You have keys that are for like communication and keys that are for actually signing. And this always goes back to, I've been talking about this for a while, the idea of using either a SATS chip or a tap signer as like your authentication, especially in the world of deep fakes as they're proliferating, that you can have a quick, easy form factor for initiating comms as like a quick handshake. And it's a key that if you lose it, it doesn't impact anything with the funds. Like, you have a different level of security for a tap signer than you would for like actual signing keys.
Yeah, I mean, when Casa tap signer support, we have Lopp here. No, I know. I only ask because we have requests, user requests.
Yeah, I mean, I like NFC in general. Like, I think that we should add NFC cold card support while we're at it.
Unfortunately, they're two different specs.
Yeah.
Because one is an NFC 5, the other one is an NFC 4. But yes, you should have both. We're gonna have I'll give you guys a preview of something that we're working on for NFC that's also gonna be very interesting for people. I think NFC is the future. I mean, QRs suck.
Yeah, what's the bandwidth on NFC? Like, I haven't done any extreme stress testing.
Oh, it's super high. Like, it's I can't remember the numbers now, but for Bitcoin related things, it's not a big deal. Like, it's more sometimes the round trip, right? Like, so for you send something, you have to wait for the other thing to sign and then get it back. That's the bottleneck. The bottleneck is not the sanding. Yeah. Anyways, let's make that happen, Lopp. Let's get NFC on all things, especially because you guys have a good app. BitcoinCore version 1.2.7, file-based communication enabled for supporting all devices and a few other updates. GreenQT version 2.0.6, add QR unlock for Jade as an experimental feature, improve QR code scanning. Bisq version 2.0.4, Wasabi version 2.0.8. I thought things were dying, but apparently there is a lot of action happening on Wasabi because people can bring your own coordinator, right? Is that do any of you guys know a lot about this stuff?
Yeah, they're like doing like, you announce if you want to run your own coordinator, you like announce it on Nostr, and other people can then like pull in and see like, oh, here's a coordinator I'll connect to. And it's pretty interesting. Like, since it's on Nostr, like all these events are timestamped, and some of them are like months old. So they've been working on this for a while, I guess. And yeah, it's apparently there's like over like It's like in the teens or something of number of coordinators announced. So a bunch of people are trying to do it. I mean, it makes sense. You would make a lot of money if you become the big one.
I mean, it is pretty cool, right? That, maybe this was kind of coordinated, right? Like, it's like, oh, we're closing down. But, all of a sudden a bunch of coordinators show up.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it is the only way, right? I mean, like the incentives are horrible when the coordinator is centralized and has the profit motive, right? That's probably why he held back Samurai from having a decentralized coordinator for so long. They never really got to having a decentralized coordinator, right? And Join Markets has UX problems.
Should Join Market switch to Nostr for coordination?
Once we have double ratchet, I'm very, very against having these are signed notes, right? And if you get de-anonymized, it's a huge problem, right? Because now you have all that data there and it's undeniable that it is yours. So anyways, I think it's great. It's a good place to start as well. The same way we had to use IRC to find Bitcoin nodes back in the day. We start there and then we figure out how to make it better. But like waiting for the perfect solution to come is also not a good approach because then it never happens. There is also the SimpleX protocol, which is like remarkably amazing for all this stuff, but it's very complex. And I think it's the reason why none of these coordinators are looking into it. It's like, it's heavy. It's like a lot of lift to get into it. But it is probably the best, most private protocol out there right now for comms. All right. Install Linux UDEV rules for hardware wallets. Oh, UDEV rules. Labelbase version 2.2.0 derive address feature. Efficient address derivation. Generate Bitcoin addresses from BIP329 XPub label with ease. Direct labeling. It's a cool little project. It's fun to see that people are trying to make labeling proper and also make it sync. If you ever had to do accounting with like Bitcoin stuff and you can't find the labels, it's a problem. So nice to see that. Do you guys use 329 in any of your wallets, Ben, Rob, or James?
No, people have asked, but not enough people for us to spend the time on it.
I guess you guys do low value.
Yeah.
The thought too, I was thinking about this was that it'd be better. I'm just thinking because I know you guys over at Muni are also using BDK. It'd be nice if there was just a BIP 329 like extension within BDK. So then it'd be like a feature you just turn on as opposed to having to do custom stuff, right? If you just get it in as a part of the crate, it'd be just more standardized for everyone.
Let me go to Steve.
Yeah, like we rolled our own like labeling system, and it's similar to like how we do like all our Nostr contacts and stuff. So even if we did do it, it might confuse people because it'd just be like UUIDs everywhere instead of like, oh, I paid future Paul and stuff. So it'd be a little weird.
I just went into not when mandatory DMs and said when BIP 329.
That's how you get things done. You just start harassing the devs.
Absolutely. For Lopp that's new here, we often get wallets and companies to create features by just bitching on the show, either to each other or the person who maintains the project right here on the show live. And it seems very effective, very efficient.
Especially an hour in.
Yes.
No one's awake anyway. Everyone's already fallen asleep listening to this podcast.
That's right.
So this is where we just do all of our feature requests.
Fair enough.
It looks like there was an issue open in January.
Unmute me.
Yeah, not mandatory says, looks like a good spec to add.
That's a classic reply by him. ESP-miner version 2.1.5. All right, project spotlights. Satsie Zine. Satsie has this cool little new zine. That there was a Taproot one. There was what else? A Bips, all about the Bips, and a Stratum V2. It's free. It's you can download it or you can buy it, and you can. Sorry, no, you can't. Can you order copies? Yes, you can order it, and she will ship it to you. It's satsie.dev/zines, and you can donate there too.
Yeah, I was privileged to get a physical copy when I was at Boston Bit Devs a few months ago. And Satsie, also former Casa employee, now full-time mom, but still got some cool Bitcoin projects that she's working on to help the educational side.
Yeah, she mailed one to me. I was not expecting it with a very huggable note, private note on it. It's cool to see. She still likes her bug mug. She's a former receiver of a Coinkite bug mug. It's a very special object. You must have found a cold card bug in order to get it.
Oh, I should have redeemed that. I've found those before.
Really? And you didn't get a bug mug? We got to get your bug mug.
But yeah, get me a bug mug.
We'll get your bug mug.
This might be very subjective, but it feels like a document for learning Taproot. It hits me in like a nostalgic way. Like, oh, I remember back when we tried to like learn what goes on, or like we tried to learn, new aspects of how Bitcoin works. And like, that was kind of like part of the Bitcoin journey. Like, oh, here's a soft fork, I'm going to read up on it or so like that. I don't know. That doesn't seem like a thing we kind of argue, or it's like, those are things that either really technical Bitcoiners now are responsible for having those arguments and those kind of learnings, or yeah, we just, I don't know. It just seems like a cool old timey thing that we used to do as Bitcoiners, and not part of the current culture. Maybe that's just the subjective view.
Yeah, I had I recorded with Livera yesterday, and I might trigger people who are not technical on that. We were talking about stakeholders in Bitcoin and things. It's gonna be funny. Very related to that topic. All right. NFC Push Tx. This is what I wanted to talk to you guys about. This feature allows single tap broadcast of a freshly signed Bitcoin transaction. Okay. So we figured, hey, if we can lower the trade-offs, right? Like lower the bar of privacy and security a little bit, but offer people a very, very, very convenient feature for the hardware wallet experience. So what we do here is you take your PSBT however you want, right? MicroSD, NFC, or QR into the cold card or USB. And then, you sign your transaction, right? And then oftentimes the pain in the ass, you have to put the SD card, take the transaction back to the computer, load into something that then broadcasts transaction, right? But, you might have an operational cold card with you, right? That you don't care that that device may be connected to the computer or has an NFC enabled or whatever. So what this does is it bundles, so it creates a base 58 package, okay, of your transaction with the settings that you need, okay? It creates into a URL that then when you tap with the phone, it essentially uses a GET API from, say, mempool or the code or codecard.com to just broadcast a transaction. You essentially do nothing. You just tap and it broadcasts. This actually, like, if you use this right, you actually gain privacy, right? Because you can use a different network to broadcast a transaction than the one you were searching the UTXOs from to create the transaction. You can set it so it's your own infrastructure, your own node, or whatever you want. And I think this is going to help people sign transactions with hardware wallets a lot more, especially on multi-sig setups where they're not as concerned about that specific cold card's air-gappedness. Still air-gapped-ish, but you're sending data out of a high security device. So that's the trade-off. Pretty excited about this because it's so simple, it works so well, and it doesn't need apps or computers.
What scenarios does this reduce the number of steps? Because for me, I imagine typically I'm preparing the transaction in Sparrow, that I'm signing it with the cold card, and then I'm transmitting it with Sparrow, right? So is this instead of transmitting it with Sparrow, I go tap it to my phone? Is that
so? The way I see it is two ways, right? So one is if I need to sign something and this hardware wallet is in a secure environment, not secure environment, but a geographically separated environment that I'm in, right? So I have my desk where I may be generating the transaction, right? So I can take the PSBT in an SD card to the location where the device is without taking the computer with me, right? Can sign it, broadcast it right there and then, right? Without a computer. That's useful. The other scenario is, I say your QR preference, right? Because you're using Sparrow on a computer that doesn't have NFC, right? So you scan the screen, right? You sign the transaction, and then you just tap your phone that's on your desk and you get the transaction out. So, it's one of those things that like, once you do it a couple of times, it becomes like second nature. It's like super easy. But it does have some privacy trade-offs depending on how you use it, and does have some security trade-offs because it is data out, right? But we think people are going to use this a lot, especially people using collaborative multi-sig solutions, because we find that the people who come back to us from like Casa or Enchain, they contact us and they're like, can you please make this easier? We don't care about those trade-offs as much because we are in multi-sig.
On a somewhat related note, because I know Rodolfo loves weird ways of broadcasting transactions, and I hadn't seen anybody mention it. Someone wrote a Meshtastic BitcoinCore bridge recently for, I guess, basically broadcasting over this Meshtastic network. It's kind of like a Gotenna-based network, but yeah, more ways of broadcasting is always better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like we want to make it. See, it's like the reason why I did the whole ham radio stuff. It's like, it's not because you're going to do it. It's because you can do it, right? You want to have all these avenues of can do proven publicly, because that sort of stays off bad actors that may try to co-opt the channels that are more efficient and are more convenient to us, right? Yeah, the Meshtastic stuff is interesting. The Gotenna, not so much because it's all closed and they're a full military company now. But yeah, there is. I think it can be helpful to people to have the solutions out there.
Yeah, I think this is pretty cool. My one fear would be like privacy. If your phone IP address is attached to your transaction, and if it's going to like coldcard.com/pushtx, then it's like you guys kind of have a record of every cold card or every cold card transaction that uses this. So
yep.
Using mempool space might be better because that's like seems like fucking everyone just broadcasts to them.
We do that, right? So you choose the setting, and I think we're gonna make mempool the default.
Okay.
So it goes there. You can use VPN on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can point it to your own local network. It's even better, right? You have.
Yeah.
I pinged the guys from Start9. Hopefully they edit soon, and then you just point to your own like local network box, and it does it, right? Like it's optionality.
Yeah, you should be able to also configure it right to your own personal Electrum server too.
Yes.
Like you can just pick that IP address, drop it in there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling that once people start using, we're going to get some interesting sort of suggestions or improvements to this, and it'd be like, maybe there's clever shit we can do.
Yeah, I wonder if people want like something like I sign like 5 transactions and then I want to like broadcast them delayed over the next few hours.
Yep. You can do. Remember, there was a website that did. I think it was Pushtx. No, something else. There was a website that could do random delay transaction broadcast. Another cool thing too that we want to do, and we're going to do it on the coldcard.com. If you push it through there, is we're going to use different nodes in different locations to broadcast at the same time. So you break some of the timing analysis.
So like the rest of the network doesn't know it's a cold card transaction.
That's right. There's a lot of stuff you can do. And because we do this chain PSBT thing as well, so on Cold Card, you can load multiple PSBTs in the same session, right? So you put in a micro SD card, and then you can chain sign them. And then you can chain, broadcast them too. So that sort of like more usability improvement there.
Is there like Because like you're putting the raw transaction in the URL, so is there like a URL limit where you could like your transaction's too big to?
I'm sure there is a limit per spec of W3C. However, by the size of the websites nowadays and the things that they do, I imagine unlikely we will ever bump into that. Plus, remember, like the majority of the transactions are not like that big. The PSBTs may be, but the transactions sometimes are not. All right. Ginger Wallet, Bitcoin privacy solution with active coin join service. Interesting. And it's from the devs of coordinators maintained by former CTO, head of blah, 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 of Wasabi Wallet. There you go.
Yeah, I was trying to like verify that, and but like for Ginger Wallet, it's all like fresh GitHub accounts, so
Ooh.
you got to trust there. But and their website is also blocked for US IPs, so they still have some old Wasabi stuff there. But
Okay.
yeah,
Wait for the dust to settle. Let the technical people experience firsthand first.
yeah.
cargo-checkct CT open source development tool to counter time attacks by Don John. Oh, cool. Privacy. I just talked about SimpleX. They have an update, and I think the latest update like doesn't even have an identifier anymore or something like that. Like they had some crazy new stuff. Private message routing to protect IP addresses, protect IP address when receiving files, chatting wallpapers, some groups. I highly recommend people checking this project out, especially if they're looking for a protocol that's private to do things. It's absolutely insane of how private it is. Okay, so there is another project called Pushtx, privacy-focused Bitcoin transaction broadcast tool. I guess we have a name conflict, but it's okay. We'll all survive. There you go. So the Rust program broadcasts Bitcoin transactions directly into PTP network by connecting to a set of random Bitcoin nodes. Nice.
It looks like it defaults to Tor as well. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
lofextra, local first expense tracker. Full ownership of your data securely and privately, E2E encrypted updates between devices using mnemonic passphrases. S key to your account. No registration, no emails, no password. Works offline. Cool. I don't know if I mentioned, but Steve got back here on DMs. Have discussed, but focus on getting our 1.0 beta out ASAP. We'll make sure it's on a roadmap for 1.0, post 1.0.
Excellent. I'm also eagerly waiting for the 1.0 release. They're on Alpha 12 right now. Every 2 weeks, they're putting out an alpha with some good, meaningful updates. Like they just added Postgres support, like natively within the app, which is great, just for managing applications and databases for all the wallet data. That said, I have a T-shirt that Steve gave me in February of last year that says BDK 1.0 2023 World Tour, and I wear it to the park sometimes just to remind him that it is 2024 and we still do not have BDK 1.0.
All right, Lightning and L2 Plus. Let's talk about some software updates here. Why don't we start with Mutiny, Node, and Harbor? Go ahead, guys.
And for Mutiny, there's not been much. We fixed some bugs and people added translations. But yeah, we announced Harbor. Basically, the idea is like a Fediment desktop wallet to hopefully help with all the privacy apps disappearing. We can have a new competitor with like a different set of trade-offs that's not CoinJoin, but Fediment based. It's not ready to download yet, but a bunch of people tried and it's, it kind of works, but we got a bunch of good feedback and stuff. So hopefully have it out soonish.
Yeah, when's the download button?
Compile only.
That's right.
That's a milestone, but it's nice that it's cool how many people hopped into the GitHub and started a lot of Fediment is all Rust and Harbor is all Rust, like front to back. It's like a front end written in Rust. And, obviously it's just one single solid desktop binary. It's kind of like the software I would like to have more of on my computer, basically.
Right.
So I think that was pretty attractive to existing Fediment devs. So a bunch of them have shown up in the repo, which is exciting.
So you guys hear here first. Mutiny is a hipster language shop.
Yep.
If you're looking for a Rust job, go talk to them. When Cashew, because I don't really care much about Fediment at this point. I really want Cashew Maxi.
We want to add Cashew support. That's like part of our planned things. Something we were talking to Hong Kim, the Bitwise guy, and he was like kind of incepting of us. Like he gives the idea of like BitTorrent succeeded because every user is not just a leecher, but also a seeder where you're like default helping everyone. He's like, he wants to try to figure that out for like Bitcoin privacy. Like his idea was like having every client also be a cashew mint. So just everyone is like creating their own mints and it's impossible to like shut down any mint. I like the idea, but I think everyone running a mint might not work, but we're trying to figure out different ways of doing stuff like that where we can get like...
Well, for cashew, that's possible, eh? Not for Fetty, that would be complicated. For cashew, that's...
I mean, you need to run a lightning node.
One thought would be, it'd be like a cashew mint backed by a Fediment.
Yeah.
Backed by a lightning node.
I mean, why not, right?
I really like this idea of, and yeah, we definitely haven't quite figured out exactly how to do it, but you know, the person who's like the I'm doing my part guy, like I bought a Raspberry Pi despite NVK's, you know, dire warnings to how it would kill my family. And
more.
Yeah, and more. I installed a bunch of software on there that I didn't quite understand, but it seems to work. And I got a Lightning node and I opened 2 channels and now I'm helping the Lightning network. Like that's kind of like the mindset. And it turns out that doesn't actually improve payments for most people in the world, but that enthusiasm and that willingness to like to operate machinery in order to help the network, it'd be really cool to capture that and lean on that. It's even the BitTorrent incentive model is even better. It's like,
yes, I'm
going to seed this so that I get better downloads now and in the future.
Yeah.
But either way, that would be pretty cool to add to bring stuff like that into payment networks.
I love Raspberry Pis for that, like for education, and like that's great. Just don't use it as a hardware wallet.
And I do think there are a lot of people who would like to run a mint for their family.
Yes, there's nothing illegal about that. Like, you know, it's like you know, that's totally kosher, right? I mean, it's the communism of your own house, right? Like.
A little at-home communism in cashew, and then, you know,
families is communism. You know, like it really is.
Back that up with some Fediment for, you know, some good multi-party rugging, and then back that up with the actual Lightning Network, which is backed by actual Bitcoin. So many cool layers.
No, I mean, like, you know, I really like, you know, I've been sort of beating at this own thing like for a while. It's just like, you know, Bitcoin doesn't scale to everybody. So like, you know, like get over it. Like it's like an eCash, maybe it's not going to be eCash, but eCash is a extremely good contender to be this sort of like a solution that clears back to Bitcoin either through Lightning or directly Base, but it is a fantastic sort of solution because of Bitcoin to resolve the small payment or global solve, between quotes, Bitcoin ownership problem.
The way I'm kind of seeing it right now is like there's I think Safedine has kind of like popularized this line of thinking. I don't know how many people adhere to it, but it's basically like I don't have to worry about Bitcoin scaling because eventually Visa will figure that they should get involved in Bitcoin and they'll scale Bitcoin for me. I just need to like ensure the sound money part. You know, in some sense, I agree that the sound money part is foundational and cannot be fucked with. But we also still have an opportunity to front run Visa on this scaling payments thing and do it in a better, more privacy, more cypherpunk, more self-sovereign way. And so, you know, how far can we get along that path before they, you know, wake up?
I think the key is like people need to figure this shit out without needing any changes to Bitcoin consensus. Because like if you need a Bitcoin change consensus for whatever you want to do next, you're going to be sitting and waiting for a while, and it may not never come, and it may come in a way that doesn't work for you. So like you can't depend on that. You can't hold your breath for that. So like that's part of the reason why I love the Cashew and Fetty stuff so much. Is like, you know, they went there without needing a change to Bitcoin to try to do things right. It's a lot healthier approach to this.
Yeah, I almost kind of see it like we see like something like Wallet Satoshi demonstrates like here's the UX you have to achieve before people will want to use your wallet.
Yes.
And then our goal right now is like, okay, well, can we get like Wallet of Satoshi UX, but with better self-sovereignty, but closer to self-custody with Fedimint. And then in the future, I would hope that there would be, Bitcoin soft forks. One of the ways we evaluate those is like, okay, we've gotten this UX we like. Can we actually improve how self-custodial it is through a soft fork? Can we make Fedimint less trust required?
Yep. All right, guys. So we're trying this new approach now where we're not going to read every single item on the lists below.
Nothing's happening anyway.
Yeah, there's like, the people who get the newsletter get all these notes and get all the links anyway. So you should subscribe to the newsletter. It's on Substack. So if you guys see anything here that you want to talk about or mention, skim that Lightning L2 updates there. We talked about Harvard. We talked about Mutiny, Node, Nostr, Primo version 1.7.21, faster rendering, wide feed layout, top zaps and feeds. That was my request. Thank you, million. A notification facelift, improved app Chrome, improved connectivity. The top zap shit is awesome. I really enjoy it because you get to be on somebody else's post. It's like you buy real estate. It's very satisfying. You can buy the right to be on their post with a thumbs down, for example. It's great. What else here? Not social updated, Zap, all the usual, all the clients in Nostr updated their stuff. There's this new thing called Sigit, open source and self-hostable solution for secure document signing and verification using Nostr. It's very cool. I think this has some legs.
Yeah, this was one of the projects that came out of the Madeira thing that we were a part of. So it's cool. It's actually like continued to be worked on and stuff. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's like DocuSign, but Nostr and normal cryptography.
And also another thing that once we have double ratchet can be done with privacy on DMs, right? Like
exactly.
Like all these things can be done like, in that mode. I mean, once you have double ratchet, if it's done correctly, I mean, you could even do like a health shit, like health records and stuff because it's proper forward privacy.
I see Geyser's on this list. We launched Harbor on Geyser. And so thank you to everybody who's contributed so far. And they just added this like goals feature, and we're still trying to figure out how we want to do that. Like, do we want to say like, hey, fund us this much, like hold features hostage for like milestones versus just like, hey, please donate what you can, and we're going to do our best to make this as good as we can make it.
All right. git-remote-nostr, git remote helper for Nostr. Oracle, lightweight minimalist Nostr blog that consists of a single HTML file. Love that. Nostr is a great way to host text data. You really live on everybody else's computer, which is great. Corny Chat, open source audio space built on Jam that integrates Nostr and Lightning. Is this like Zapstream? Because Zapstream is awesome. By the way, anybody who's looking for a Twitch kind replacement where you need nothing to just start streaming your feed of video with people commenting on it, Zapstream is amazing.
Looks like Corny is more of like a Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces kind of thing.
Okay. Maybe a Twitter Spaces replacement. That would be nice.
Something you left out was title added Nostr login.
That's cool. That's kind of a biggie.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how it got visible to them.
Yeah, who could have possibly told them?
Who sent an email down the chain saying, "Hey guys, can we please add Nostr login to title?" But funny enough, I am a browser hater, so I really think the solution for Nostr is not to have private keys and extensions to log in into things. I hate that. I stopped using that, so I'm waiting for a better solution. Milian was talking about using the Nostr Connect thing or the CK bunker stuff, right? Sorry, not CK bunker, the Nostr NSEC bunker, where the browser knows which app you're using and stores the key is stored on a phone app, and then on the desktop it just talks back and forth, right? So it doesn't have the keys; it just has some some session policy, and it goes from there. So you may do something you don't want to, but at least it doesn't have the private key to be lost forever. I like that idea.
Yeah, and I just we had the extension support for a little bit in Mutiny, and I don't like the UX of it. It's just like this mysterious, hopeful API that you might get sometimes. It's like my UX as a developer was shitty, so it's out.
Yeah, so let's stop using the extensions. Like that's one good way of going about this. It's like stop using extensions for Nostr on the browser, and that means the app activity, right? So the web activity on all these apps is going to go to 0.
No.
And then all these devs are not going to have any users. And
Copy and paste your private key like a real man. Stop being afraid.
No, the cool thing is if people just stop using it, like the devs are going to have to find an alternative solution, right? So stop using the web for Nostr with extensions. All right, Bitcoin Optac. Anything here you guys want to bring up?
Nope, but I think there was a bit of an overlap, skipping down a bit to the Samurai Wallet stuff with wallet descriptors, actually.
Where?
So I don't know. Perhaps you can confirm, but with Samurai getting shut down, does the wallet itself still work, or is it completely broken because their infrastructure is gone?
If you were relying on their servers, it does not work. If you were hosting your own node like a dojo, then it still works because you're just talking to your own node.
Gotcha.
And I believe you still can import it into Sparrow. And then if you import it into Sparrow, you can talk to whatever node you want to then move funds.
Yeah, that's just to recover. You cannot do new mixing, right?
That's right.
Because Samurai was extremely centralized, like extra centralized. And they had the Xpubs.
Related to this, I've had people reach out to me saying, my Samurai wallet says my balance is 0 and I don't know how to get my money anymore. And so I actually have to send them to walletsrecovery.org to give them the really weird derivation path that Samurai was using.
Yeah, man, it's too soon. The things that, so like, I don't know, that's such a complicated topic there and a complicated group of people.
Yeah, they had a bunch of non-standard derivation paths for post-mix, pre-mix, bad bank. So you had to have that stuff documented if you're going to try and manually recover stuff. The wallet and the passphrase is not enough. You have to be able to reconstruct all that.
All right. News and noteworthy. I mean, we don't have to read all this. Anything here you guys want to talk about? Hodl blocks access to land, to its platform to Americans. Americans are going to have to fight back or move or something because shit's getting weird in the US with all this stuff. No, it's all over. Like, it's not like the US government say you can't do this. It's just the US government could put these people in prison if they don't do it exactly the way it's supposed to be done, but nobody knows the way it's supposed to be done. So it's very tricky. I'm not an American. I'm not in America, so I don't know how to relate to some of this stuff. It's all a bunch of bullshit, but you have to work around with the hands you're dealt.
I think the Arc Labs is pretty exciting. It's probably like, hopefully like mainnet launch soon. They'll be like the first real competitor to Lightning. If it works or not, we'll see. But it's cool it's actually happening.
Cool. Funding, peer-to-peer rights fund launched. Oh, that's cool. Our mission is safeguard decentralized Spear. Like, apparently there's good people behind it, so it seems to be safe to make donations to this. Unchained University of Austin launched first long-term endowment fund held in Bitcoin. That's cool too. The HRF has awarded partial bounties to a bunch of stuff. Spiral supports newest grantee Sean Gilligan. Bitcoin Design Foundation grants support to more contributors. OpenSat's going to have announcements soon too with like piles and piles and piles of new applications that got approved. There is a lot of money for open source development now. Like, people cannot complain about that. Mining, concept for solderless ASIC chip modules. I don't know how this sync, the heat sink is going to work well at that or not, but it's interesting to see. I think that's it for me here. Any topics we may have forgotten or things you guys wanted to talk about that we haven't?
You didn't want to talk about the ETH ETF getting approved?
ETF.review.
Yes. Like, listen, there is scammier things as ETFs nowadays than even Ethereum. It's just, this thing's all sort of like part of the same bag of hurt and shit. ETH is dying though, like, which is kind of fun to watch. All the ETH people now want to build like shitcoins on Bitcoin, and that seems to be like the biggest take from their shitcoin conference in Austin. Was the fact that they were all talking about how they're going to build shitcoins on Bitcoin because all the shitcoins are dying. So, winning.
Yeah, I mean, first NFTs and now just random tokens, right?
Yep.
When you realize that no one actually really cared about the decentralized tech and the obfuscation that ETH had. They just wanted to be able to print tokens, and they want to go to where the liquidity is, which is Bitcoin.
Well, they also want to scam Lindy, right? Like, they didn't want to be on Bitcoin because the scam Lindy was on Ethereum. So once the scam Lindy moves to Bitcoin, right? Like all the VCs, all the projects. Once you get a little bit of Lindy and network effect on the scams on Bitcoin, it's going to be huge. I mean, it's horrible. I don't like it, but like, I don't think Bitcoiners are prepared for the amount of scamming and the shittiness that's going to come to Bitcoin that used to exist in Bitcoin way back in the day.
Is this hyper Bitcoinization?
Yes, it is.
Hyper Bitcoinization. Is it all coming home?
It's all going to be Bitcoin as unit of account.
Yeah, I mean, can we agree then that it doesn't really make sense to be a like hyper Bitcoinization maximalist and also a Puritan to say like we must do whatever we can to prevent scams from happening on Bitcoin? I don't really see how you try to do both of those at the same thing. Like if Bitcoin is going to become the money of the world, then obviously scammers are going to adopt it too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think there's a difference between preventing and alerting, right? Like, we can still go shout on Twitter and call people scammers. Like, that's not going away. While they really have, like, they don't need our permission to build scams on Bitcoin. I mean, that's what Bitcoin winning looks like. It's like every scam is going to be denominated in Bitcoin. It's not going to be double your gas. It's going to be double your Bitcoin, right?
And with all this crazy stuff going on with like ordinals and stuff in the past year, like it hasn't really invaded my safe space as a Bitcoiner. Like again, like that sovereign engineering cohort, I met a guy who like got into Bitcoin because of ordinals. He's a class of ordinals Bitcoiner, but he wasn't like trying to like sell me any NFTs. He was just into Bitcoin and Nostr stuff.
Yeah, like there's going to be a bit of everything, right? There's going to be people that like come like through the shitcoin route to Bitcoin, and they're gonna like sort of have a better money, and then who knows, maybe affects them, and they're more interested in building things that are a bit more ethically oriented. But there's gonna be like some of the biggest scams, like like we're in Bitcoin, right? I mean, it's people are okay with Tether, right? I mean, Tether is fully captured, fully like they're proud of how many transactions they canceled and blocked, and and their treasury is backed, which means backed by the bombs.
Yes, but they're PodConf approved, and that's all that matters.
PodConf approved.
Yeah, in a proper anarchic voluntary environment, real anarcho-capitalism, you're going to accept that people you don't like use your money. Right? And that's what winning looks like.
I guess related to this. Sorry, Paul, go.
I was just going to make a joke about how I was still waiting for that guy to send me 2 Bitcoin. I sent him 1 Bitcoin.
Oh, it was a Panda? The Bitcoin Panda? Double your Bitcoin?
There's many such cases.
I guess related to all this, like the conversation that's been happening. So I knew this a while ago, but it seems like it's like breaking news for people who aren't following it closely. But with just opcat, if it was activated, I'm not even saying the likelihood of it being activated, right? But just like it would enable full zero knowledge rollups happening in Bitcoin, like using Starks. And all you need is cat. And the script would be ugly and horrific, but it would open up. Basically, that's where you get all of the random tokens issuing everything sovereignly on Bitcoin. Even if Bitcoin itself will never support first class tokens, like as a name and like ETH has with the ERC20s, you're going to be able to do these abstractions, and it's all going to come home if that gets turned on.
You heard it here first. Knock that cat.
Well, so this is me just educating, like talking about it, because people weren't even aware of it.
No, I know, totally.
I think that actually becomes an argument for the great script restoration, because it's like it's cat plus enough opcode so that when you do that crazy construction, you don't have to do it the ugly, gross, all cat way.
I would agree. If you're gonna do it, you like turning on just cat is like just asking for really obfuscated, complicated scripts that people can't reasonably discern or understand. You have to just trust the developer. Whereas if you enable more functionality, at least you can do things in a much cleaner way.
Yeah.
I think that thing has terrible branding. Anything that sounds like an omnibus bill, anything that sounds like the great, the big, like it's going to get
the Patriot script restoration.
Exactly, right? Like
the World Economic Forum.
The Save the Children, yes. Anything that's named like that is going to probably be met with even more pushback. People should just, make PRs that are small as possible, debate them on the PR like merit, and then sort of go from there instead of creating these massive things, because these massive things really push away economic actors that are not technical. This opcat shit's going to be a shit show, man, if it gets proposed, like, for real.
We got Ben the Cat Man here on the call.
Activate it. Let's do it.
Okay, listen, what if you guys had to make the case for opcat, like a quick case for opcat and then a steelman a case against it, like what would it be?
So, okay, the way, I think the best way to ask is like, if Satoshi, instead of disabling opcat, had changed it to max 520 bytes, would Bitcoin be dead today? Or would you like be disinterested in Bitcoin because of it? Like, probably not. So like, let's just fix the bug in opcat properly, enable like all these things that we could have done initially, and then once it's activated, we'll see, okay, people are doing this, people are doing that, people are, doing tokens or whatever the fuck, and we can like create targeted opcodes of things that are like actually, this has a huge ugly script, we can activate CTV, now it's 1,000 times more efficient, stuff like that.
I mean, my argument, at least from a security standpoint, was opcat has been reactivated in Bitcoin Cash since like 2018 or 2019. So if you want to prove that it's a terrible idea, go destroy Bitcoin Cash, please.
I mean, I don't think you can destroy Bitcoin Cash more than it's already destroyed. Like, nobody uses it.
One of the ways that somebody brought up at BitDevs recently was, you could kind of think of it as like some of these opcodes, it's like how much C++ are you adding to BitcoinCore to get the functionality you want? And there's like a real simplicity and kind of beauty to these opcodes, that there's minimal amounts of code required to support them, rather than like, hey, let's put a whole bunch of new C++ into BitcoinCore to support this specific use case. It's kind of like the inverse of that. Let's put a very small amount of C++ and let people who want that specific use case like write the scripts that they want to write.
Yeah. This goes to Pushtra's mailing list quote, basically saying that 90% of the time, if he thinks of a new use case for like Bitcoin script, it could be done with opcat. And that's where you get ugly, not maybe elegant or clean scripts, but you get things that are functional. And then from there, you see what's taking up chain space. And then you can dedicate additional opcodes to basically compress that, so you're getting more efficiency on chain.
I think ordinals, which should not have triggered people, what should have triggered people were the BRC20 tokens, which caused the real problem. But the main issue to me is I think the because of the dick butts on chain, the perception that the network has, and Rindell's new endeavor company's language might actually might cause more harm. I think it's going to be very hard to get stuff through right now when people are so heated and feel like there's high risk of unintended consequences to things, even though, opcat is not as bad with the bug fix.
Are the people who are really mad, do they run nodes?
Yes, there is a lot of people who are like non-irrelevant economic actors on Bitcoin that like, there is enough. Let's put it this way. I think there is enough, especially a very quiet majority of people that don't want to fuck with Bitcoin anymore because Bitcoin is worth a lot for them. And, Opcat's not going to solve the 8 billion people trying to hold Bitcoin either, right? It might help alleviate a little bit with some more complex scripts, but still, like it doesn't solve the problem.
What Cat does functionally for other kinds of scaling approaches is that it allows you to take an abstraction of a Merkle tree and do that on chain.
Yep.
You just take each root, you hash it, you start you build Merkle trees. So that's where you get these ideas of rollups, being able to do state machines, being able to do more advanced spending conditions when you're doing that with the transaction. Like you basically put the transaction on the stack if you have Cat. So those are they're very rough, ugly tools. I think from a perspective of letting users figure out how they want to use their money is fine. I think to your point, Rodolfo, there's a lot of people who are holders of Bitcoin. They are economic actors of Bitcoin, and they're very invested in a certain narrative of how Bitcoin should operate. And this is this is not incremental. This is like opening everything, because once opcat is activated, there's really not a good reason to say some other use case should not be done.
We're gonna need the dogs,
right? Opdog, yeah. But what if opcat were to be activated? You really lose most space on like why something else should not be activated at that point.
No,
you'll be able to do
over.
it with Cat. Yeah, it's everything. You get everything.
Yeah,
and that might be a difficult sell, right? Like when it really comes down to it, like because we have achieved like a fantastic store of value. We really have, right? Bitcoin does that and can do that for the world. So like trying to sell more functionality on Bitcoin is not going to be an easy thing. If you talk to devs within devs, like of course engineers, love to say anything is possible, right? And nothing's gonna break. It's always like that. Don't worry, we can build a bridge. It's not gonna fall. And then, but when you talk to non-economic, like non-technical people, it's the opposite, right? Like they're gonna have the fear, or the hope or whatever. Like, and like the groups don't talk to each other, like. So like they just shout at each other on Twitter, and then anybody who's a little bit more reasonable just removes themselves from the conversation. So I think the contention is way further than people want, and the heavy-handedness of the conversation in terms of yes, of course there is consensus for this or for that is also a turn off for a lot of economic actors that just remove themselves from the conversation, and they'll gladly dump the other fork. Because everybody loves an airdrop.
The thing is, though, the fork will be the people not activating opcat, because opcat is a soft fork. So you'd have to.
Yes. People would actively fight that.
Yeah.
People will counter it, right?
So, but yeah, it's either like if you try to counter it, you're either doing a separate soft fork or just rejecting blocks, which is like you're the Bcash now. You're not the Bitcoin, nor Bitcoin. So it'll be interesting fight.
The problem is there is a massive economic incentive, right, for you to try to fuck with that fork too. So because you get an airdrop if your original Bitcoin continues as the longer chain.
Yeah, and the thing to think about is the miners too, right? So like you have the economic actors, you have the miners. If the majority, like if a lot of the hash rate is enforcing opcat, you're then putting the miners in a position where you're splitting the hash rate of the network to reject opcat.
Yep.
Right? So then it becomes a question of where the hash power ultimately goes with the economic actors. And that's where your point, Rodolfo, like you can just dump the other fork. So what you need to do is like you basically need to put your money on the line to tank the economic activity so the miners stay with the fork that you want, while you also get an airdrop of the coin you want to keep.
Yep.
So it's like skin in the game to the max. There's nothing like fork politics.
Right. And but the thing is, like, it was a delight. Like people that dumped Bcash fast got like 20% on that coin, right? So like the incentive is actually quite high. You might even like opcat a little bit, but like the idea of making that airdrop bump in Bitcoin denominated is actually quite enticing.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have the Bcash wars all over again, but it'll be flipped of like the pro medium of exchange people versus pro store value.
And I think it's gonna make it even worse by the fact that it's gonna be every unsavory character is gonna want cat as well.
Yeah.
Like Rindal. the most unsavory.
Right. Ryan Dow is our very regular person here. No, I mean, it's not even the what's the name of the thing that
Taproot Wizards.
the wizards. No, it's like people way worse than that. Like it's
Yeah. I'm going to have the Vitalics laying in being like, I'm pro OpCat, and then it'll make people look bad.
No, I mean, as soon as Vitalik says it, that's it, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like people, oh, no, I don't want it.
That's interesting, though. It's like, is it in Vitalik's interest for Bitcoin to be a better ETH competitor?
No, he wants the opposite, right?
I mean, he has a ton of Bitcoin.
He just wants ETH to become a bridge. ETH's going to become a Bitcoin layer 2. He'll just bridge to ETH.
No, but that's what I've been hearing now all the time. It's like there's all these new projects that want to do EVM with some bridge shit back to Bitcoin. It's a lot of projects like that.
Yeah. It's just like all the liquidity of all the ordinals took all the liquidity out of ETH NFTs. If you can just print out tokens on Bitcoin layer 2s, it's over. I guess it's also coming anyway in the form of RGB and Taproot assets, right?
See, that's the thing. All this shit was on Bitcoin back then, right? Like every scam was done on top of Bitcoin in the early days.
All the fork coins. Yeah, it was just like, hey, I changed 4 parameters in the Bitcoin code. Now it's a new coin.
No, but we had like Namecoin, we had Omni, we had Mastercoin.
Counterparty.
All those things were on top of Bitcoin, right? Zuko built RGB. I guess none of those things went anywhere. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And I have a feeling that the push for fork conversation and activation is going to happen when the price starts to pump. And then you're going to have all these new entrants and it's going to be extra messy.
I can't wait.
And the ETFs have to decide what fork they support.
Yeah. I mean, by that point, they should just turn off the internet, go into your bunker and just hope to wake up with the correct fork 10 years later. All right, guys. This was great. If there is any other topics you guys want to mention now. Otherwise, any final thoughts, Mr. Lopp?
Yeah, as we can see, the Bitcoin space is still incredibly boring, and I can only imagine it will get even more boring as the market starts to heat up.
Mr. Ben the Carman.
Let's activate OpCat. Even Donald Trump wants it.
Paul.
I think Trump wants great script restoration if he really thought about it deeply.
Mr. Rob.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. Yeah, it's another boring week in Bitcoin. I guess if I mentioned it earlier, we are looking to hire, so drop a line at jobs@anchorwatch.com. We did a full end-to-end mainnet. We're getting ready to launch hopefully in the next month. Hoping to be live. So very excited to actually take this to market.
And nobody's listening anymore. So, it's been 2 hours. So thank you so much for no one who's now still listening. And, I'll see you on the next episode. Take care. Thanks for listening. For more resources, check the show notes. We put a lot of effort into them. And remember, we don't have a crystal ball, so let us know about your project. Visit bitcoin.review to find out how to get in touch.